Okay, welcome everyone. Freilich and Adar. We are base on base in the wide lines, fourth wide line, just after the Teku. So this is what the Mishnah said. So the Gemorah says, what are we talking about over here? The Mishnah says, if they're sitting together, right? So he makes a bracha, he's mighty all of them. So what the Gemara says, if the Mishnah said, if they're leaning, if they're all leaning down, they're drinking wine on these beds and leaning, then one guy can make a bracha to be mighty all of them. But if not, they're not, right? That was what the Mishnah said. Should we read it again in the Mishnah? What does it say? Can I find it? It's the second line in the Mishnah. If they're sitting down, each one makes his own bracha. But if they're leaning, so one guy makes a bracha for everyone. That was the Mishnah. So for Raminu, we got a contradiction. Raminu always means a contradiction, right? There's a contradiction. It says, 10 guys are going on a journey, they're going on a hike. Even though they're all sharing one, it must be a big loaf of bread. 10 men are eating one loaf of bread. So what's the din? 10 guys are all eating this one loaf of bread. Even though they're going on a hike together, they're eating from one loaf, each one makes his own bracha. If they sit to eat, even though each one's got his own little bagel, one guy makes a bracha for everyone. So you see the contradiction. Even though it says they're sitting, they're not leaning, one guy might see everyone, one guy makes a bracha for everyone, even though they're not leaning. Our Mishnah said if they're sitting, each one makes his own bracha. The implication of this brisa is that even if they're sitting, yeshvu, one guy makes a bracha for everyone. Alpha pisha lo yesebu. Amr of Nachum by Yitzchak. What are we talking about? Going to Amri Nezel v'neichel lachmo beduch plan. If they said, let's go and eat bread together, let's go break bread together, then when they sit, it's like a kviyah suda, and they make a bracha. Our Mishnah is just talking about 10 random guys sitting in a restaurant, eating. 10 guys are sitting in a kiddush, they don't know each other, they're sitting down. Then one guy doesn't make a bracha for everyone, each one makes his own blessing. But if they say, let's get together and let's have a meal, then that's called they're getting together. Even if they don't lean, you make a bracha. One guy makes a bracha for everyone. Okay, Kinach Nafshe the Rav. When Rav passed away, Azal Tamid Basrei. His Tamidim went after him. Of course, they followed him to a distant land to bet for the Kvura. They went behind like you're supposed to do, mitzvah, look for a sameh. So Tamidim went. Kihadri, on the way back, Amri, they said, Nezel v'neichel lachma, let's break bread on Nahar Dank, on the Dank River, wherever that is. It's a big machlokes where it is. Basad the Karchi, after they broke bread, so they ate together, Yasvi v'komi bailu. One asked the other one, hey, what should we do? Esevu davka tanan av yashvulai. When is one guy might say everyone? Is that only if they leaned? But if they sat, no. Or since they went together, they sat together, they're on the same journey and they ate together bread, so it's like you leaned. So how do you look at this case? They went together, they're on a journey, they said, let's sit down in this place, they're eating together. So they didn't know. They didn't know what the din is. The Mishnah said, they knew the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, only if they're leaning. They didn't lean. So what's the din? If they're sitting down, can one guy be mitzi everyone or not? And they didn't know the answer. Come Ravada Barava. So what happened? Ravada Barava stood up. Ahade Karye Lachari. Now we're on the Mim Gimel Amud Aleph, top of the page. Ahade Karye Lachari. They ripped Kriya for Rav. Rav died, they ripped Kriya. So what did they do? He turned his shirt backwards. And he tore another Kriya. What was the back of his shirt? It's now in the front. He ripped Kriya on that. Like, we lost Rav, we lost the Torah. We got nothing to do. Omar nach nafshe the Rav's dead. Brichs b'zayna legamina. We don't even know what brachas to make on food. We didn't even know Hilchos brachas. What a tragedy. So ad the asahu saba. All of a sudden, some old man came past them. So machlekes, if this means Eliyah Novi, sometimes hu saba means Eliyah Novi. Sometimes it doesn't mean Eliyah Novi. Machlekes over here. If this is Eliyah Novi. Ramazlu, and he told them, Masnis in a Brisa. Ramalu Masnis in a Brisa. He told them, there's a kasha from the Mishnah, from the Brisa. The kasha we just asked. V'shani lo, kividami nezavnei chalachma, v'derech plan, kasei budami. And the answer is that if you said together, let's go, let's eat together, that's like you leaned. That's called a kviya suda. If someone says, let's go have a meal together, so that's called you eating together. Okay. Nu gemorah. Sebu echad mevarch. If they leaned, what's it then? One guy makes a bracha, right? So, Rav says, Rav, leishana ele pasta by seba. Only bread needs to lean, requires leaning. Aval yain le by seba. Wine, if they're drinking wine together, you don't need to lean. Meaning, if you drink wine without a seba, one guy might see everyone. Only with bread do you need a seba. But if they're drinking wine together, wine is always, when people get together and they're drinking wine, that's always together. You don't need to drink wine. You don't need to lean to be considered you're having a party together. You're drinking together. Some say no. Rav said didn't say this. The opposite. Rav, pasta mahanyele seba. Only with bread does leaning help. The one can be might to everyone. It doesn't help. Meaning with wine, it doesn't help. Each one's got to make his own bracha. So it's a machlekes and Rav. What did he say? If with wine you don't need to lean, or if with wine leaning doesn't help you and each one's got to make a bracha. So Rav Yochanan says, "Afilu yain nami mahanyele seba." Rav Yochanan says, "Yain nami mahanyele seba." Yain's got the same thing as bread. That leaning helps. If you lean, one's might see everyone. If you don't lean, each one makes his own bracha. Meisivei. So we have a kasha. Ketzad. Seder haseba. It's a brisa. It says how what happened? What was the Seder haseba? How did this work? This whole leading business. Interesting brisa. Rice says, the guests used to come in and sit on the benches, sit on the chairs, until everyone was there. They didn't start the meal till everyone was there, right? So they're sitting on the chairs, they're sitting on the benches, they're not leaning, they're sitting. If you let mayim, they bring them water. Each one washes one hand. And bolem yain Sorry, they bring them wine. Each one makes his own bracha. So each one's sitting on a chair. Each one washes one hand, and then each one makes a bracha on the yain. It's a little bit of machlekes why he's only washing one hand. Why they washing? We'll see places maybe in a minute. Alu, then they go up onto the beds, v'seibu, and they lean, ubalahem mayim, and they bring them water again. Even though they already washed one hand, now they got to wash both hands. Bolem yayin, they bring them wine. Even though they each made their own bracha already, they already made bracha on the yayin. That's not enough. Even though they've already made a bracha yayin, now they've got to make another bracha, but one guy might see everyone. So Rashi is going to explain why it's not enough that they made a bracha before. Rashi explains, because now they're in a different part of the house. They set the chairs over there, they sat down, and then they go to the room with the beds, so they're lying down. So the bracha from there isn't made to the bracha for there. So says the Rash, says the gemorah, hey, chlishna, domer Rav, according to the first lashon the Rav said, loishon ele pas. The boy is eba, aval yain loy boy is eba, kasheresha. According to that lashon, this is shver. Why? Yain doesn't need leaning, right? So why, when each one's sitting by himself, the beginning part's hard. Each one sitting by himself, he makes his own bracha. Why? According to the first lashon Rav, yain doesn't need leaning. They're sitting there together in Rav's house. They're not leaning, but one should be able to make a bracha to be mitzvah everyone, because yain loy boy a seiber. Yain, you don't need to lean for a seiber for one guy to be mitzvah everyone. So why in the ratio does it say each one makes a bracha by himself? They're not leaning, but who cares? One should be mitzvah everyone. So Gemara answers, Shani Orchim, with guests, it's different. With guests, you do need to lean for wine. Why? The Daitayu le Mekar. Since their intention now is to get off the chairs at some stage, they're not being kaveh to sit down over here. So even though they're sitting here, they're drinking wine together, that's called the kviyas, because they know they're going to get up in a second. They don't know when, where, how, but they won't kaveh themselves. They didn't plant themselves into this place, right? That's the first kasha. According to the second lushan that says Damarav Leishanu Ela Pas. The Mahanyale Seba Valaloi Mahanyale Seba. According to the second lushan that says leaning for wine, it doesn't help to lean. It never helps to lean. You're still gonna have to make, each one's gonna have to make his own bracha. Even if you lean, each one's gonna have to make his own bracha, kasha sefer. So the end part of this bryce is fair. So when they leaned, so how could one be mitzi? It doesn't help to lean for yayin. Shani Osam. I think this might be the first migu in Shas, that since they're leaning for bread and the leaning helps for bread, so the leaning is going to help for the yayin. Oh. Says the Gemara. We'll just see the first taste survey. What's going on over here? Each one washes one hand. What are we talking about? Why is he washing one hand? Says Taisus, top Taisus, you know why you're washing one hand? If they cover the bracha, he's about to make a bracha on yayin, they're coming in with dirty hands, wash your one hand, cover the bracha. It's not like you're washing your hand for Paris. It says they used to wash their hands when they ate fruit. To have him megasiruch, as someone that washes his hand for fruit nowadays, it's gaiva. Here it's not gaiva because you're not washing both hands. You're not showing you're doing a tilish dime, you're makbid to do this dime for wash away. He's washing one hand. Rashi says he's holding the kais. Other Rishonim saying, since he's holding the kais, and the whole sugya is talking about where they were makbid on tyra, on trumas, it's a kais of truma, and it's tyra, and his hands tame. So he's washing his hands for that reason. That's why they wash their hands. Okay. So, back in the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Bolem yain b'teich hamazon. The wine comes in the middle of the meal, right? So what's the din? Shalas ben Zayma. They asked me ben Zayma. Why did they say Bolem yain b'teich hamazon kol echad ve'echad mevarach la'atzmai? Each one makes his own bracha. Why is that? And the lach hamazon echad mevarach la'kulam. But after the food, before brachas hamazon, one guy can make a bracha. He might say everyone. What's going on over here? Why in the middle? In other words, why in the middle of the meal does each one have to make his own bracha? That's what the Mishnah says. In the middle of the meal, each one says his own bracha. At the end of the meal, one guy is might say everyone. Why is that? He answers, not a swallowing bracha. So what's going on over here? Bit of a machlokes, obviously. Take a look in Rashi. Rashi's hovem basically a panoi. Rashi's ve'ein leva mesubin ela mavarach ela levlaya. So you're sitting there, you're having a meal according to Rashi. You're busy eating, you're busy enjoying your food, right? And all of a sudden a guy gets up and says, "Bye, Priagofen." You're not thinking about it, you're thinking about your food, right? You're busy. You aren't concentrating on the bracha. That's what he means. You're not concentrating. Ein leva mesubin panoi. That's according to Rashi the Sugya here. The reason why in the meal each one makes his own bracha is because you're busy. You're thinking about the food. You're enjoying your schnitzel. Why? You're not thinking about this guy's bracha. Says Taisus, third Taisus, Halvei basically panoi. V'yesh mefarshim according to that Rashi. K'shayim esavri moirai. If a guy says, "Listen up, guys, I'm about to make a bracha out of the gefen," v'hei menichen le'achal, and they stop eating. They put the forks down. K'dei lishma bracha to hear the bracha v'laris amen and to answer amen. That will be potter. If the guy says, "Listen up, guys, put your spoons down. I'm about to make a bar priagofen." Hatzachaim savri moirai. So what happens? And then it should be potter, according to this Rashi. Okay, that's what Taisa says. V'chein mashma b'Yerushalmi, and that's the mashmaisa b'Yerushalmi. Skip a few lines. Ve'eini rebein al-Chanan. 4-line skip. This does not appear to be true according to Reb Chaim. The given shetiknu chacham shivach kolech al-atzmai. Eini yitzikal brachas chaverai. Says Reb Chaim that since Chazal said you've got to make your own bracha, you're not yaitza. Even if you put your spoon down, you stop and you listen, you're not yaitza if your friend makes a bracha. V'gam, second thing, shaloi techalek ben panay l'shen panay das limiti. You make a mistake. Sometimes the guy will be panay, he won't be panay. It's a gzeira. People make mistakes. He made a bracha, he was yaitza, he wasn't yaitza. You were listening, you weren't listening. So according to him, you're never yaitza. In the middle of a meal, you got to make your own bracha on the yain. You can never be yaitza with someone else's bracha. According to the Rambam, you don't need to answer amen in order to be yaitza with the bracha. But some Rishonim say that still the chashash here is ein beis bli panoi. The implication is that we're worried he's going to say amen, even though he doesn't need to say amen to be yaitza. He's going to say amen and he's going to choke. He's in the middle of eating. Amen, and he's going to choke. It's pikuach nefesh. That's why you can't even wait someone in the meal. Pikuach nefesh. And that's a little bit of mashmais. Ein beis bli panoi. His throat is. It doesn't say he's oisik b'achila. He's tired b'achila. The Gemorah said he's tired. He's busy eating. It doesn't say. It says basically his throat is busy. So he's gonna choke himself. He's gonna choke. Others go so far as to say, when a bracha is made to you, if you could say the bracha. If he could say the bracha, he's not busy, then he's made to you. Someone else says it. But here, since he's busy, he's eating, so he can't say the bracha. So the bracha can't be made to him. His mouth is full. Okay, interesting mahalach. Skip a few lines of Taisus. It's about the line below where it says the Torah Sorah, my gemorah. Taisus now goes to the sugya of Avdollah. After Shabbos we make Avdollah, Tzarchian, Sha'onim Avdilit, we make Avdollah, then we stand up. So Taisus is Mefurish. What was the minhag 2,000 years ago, or 1,000 years ago in time of Taisus? What do? They made Avdollah standing up. Sha'onim Avdilim v'aimdim, Heichan Paitrim zeh miyayin v'Avdollah. Achar she'ein anu lo yeshivs v'lo mesubim. Says Taisus, when we do Avdollah, we're standing. We're not sitting. We're not leaning. How can one guy? We might see everyone with yayin and with Avdollah. You're not standing. You're not leaning. You can't be might see brichas of yayin to someone else. We just said to be might see someone else with yayin, you got to be leaning. You got to be sitting. We stand. How you yaitza? The whole thing's a big mistake according to Taisus. It says Taisus. Maybe you could say, sorry. So Taisus says, you know what? Since they're getting together to do this mitzvah Avdollah, it's like a kaviyas. Therefore, it's good for the guy that's making Avdollah, v'gam l'shaimim, and the people that are listening, yeshivs, they should sit down, b'shas Avdollah. When they're doing Avdollah, sha'az yeh nira k'kva, or poitoisam. If they sit down for Avdollah now, it's a kva, and a pata. So it says Taisus is a good thing, a nice minhag to sit down for Avdollah in order to pata everyone else. And actually, l'chayr, the same kashas when you make kiddush, you're making kiddush ala yain, how you make someone else in yain. So l'chayra, the Ramah says with kiddush, it's good to sit down. It's good to sit down. The Gemorah says it's not ma'akev. It's not ma'akev, you don't have to sit down. But it's good to sit down to be able to, I guess, this thing. But with Avdollah, says the Ramah, it's better to stand up. Why? The Mishnah says because it's not ma'akev, sitting down, standing up. And Kavod HaMelech, who's leaving you, Melava the Malka, you're saying goodbye to the king. You stand up when the king leaves. You don't sit down when the king leaves, you should stand up. Taisus wants to know what's it called? It's not ma'akev sitting down. The Chazon Ish says he doesn't understand the whole Taisus. I don't understand what Taisus is talking about. Chwal says the Chazon Ish, it makes no sense whatsoever. Because it's a bracha. Kiddush and Avdollah is a mitzvah. It's not, you're making a bracha, it's a brichas of mitzvah. It's not a brichas of nanin. Right? Therefore, if you've already made Avdollah, you can make Avdollah again. You might see someone else. You've made Kiddush already. You can make Kiddush again. You can make Kiddush 10 times. You might see whoever you want. Because it's a mitzvah. And since it's a mitzvah, you don't need to lean for a mitzvah. You don't need to lean for a mitzvah to mitzvah someone else. Yeah, if I mitzvah you with a gofen that you could go ahead and drink wine after that, you got to lean. But for a mitzvah, you don't need to lean. What's Taish talking about, Pasha? He doesn't understand it. Therefore, Kuntachaz Nishi for sure can stand up. All right, and that's Lefi L'cher, the minigar. More to stand up is fine. Why should Kiddush be more machmir than, I guess for Kiddush, maybe it's better, it says it's good to sit down because you're not being malav of the king, you ate the sheet of Taisus, but it's clear from Taisus that was the minig 1,000 plus years ago that they stood up for Havdalah, and for Kiddush also. Okay, back in the gemorah. Now we're going to the pipe story. After they ate, they smoked the pipe, right? It says that the guy that benched, the guy that was Moitzi Ever Brichas Hamazon, he made a bracha on the pipe. That implies there was someone better than him. There was someone Muchashav than him out there, and he made the bracha, not the other guy, not the one that's Muchashav. Amai. Why should he make the bracha on the pipe? Give it to the gadol. Give it to the guy who's more important. So the Gemara answers, since he was the first guy to wash his hands from my machrayim, since he's the first guy to wash his hands. So we're here, what are we talking about here? We're talking about to smoke a pipe and enjoy the smell of the pipe, psalmim, right? And the whole sugya here is, what bracha do you make on the reach of a pipe? You're smoking wood, it burns the wood, it gives off a good smell. So you got to make a bari. Now there's 3 brachas you make on a smell. If it's something from a tree, you make a bari atzei psalmim, the tree, right? The smell from a tree. If it's from like a bush or that type of thing, flowers, you make ispe psalmim. And if you don't know, or if it's from something else, you're smelling the sweat of an animal, which smells good apparently. There's some animal that has like a good zayah. You make a bari mine psalmim, meaning all types of smells. And mini pat is everything. The question is over here, he's burning the wood in his pipe. Do you make atzei psalmim? Because it's not a fresh wood now. Now it's burnt charcoal. That's what we're going to be discussing over here. Says the Gemara, so this guy washed his hands by machayim, he gets to make the bracha. That's what it says. This is an assist to Rav. The guy that washes his hands first for my machayim, he's the guy that makes the bracha if you wash your hands first. He gets the bracha. They were sitting down in the meal. So Rebbe, the great Rebbe, the Nasi, turned to Rav and said, Kum mashi yodech. He said, go ahead and wash your hands. Wash your hands. Chazi mirtis. He saw that he was all petrified. You remember, Rebbe had the table with every type of food on it. He was the Nasi, he had everything. But he wasn't there himself from Etzbektana. He was a Kaddish. He didn't eat anything, or whatever that means. So he said, so Rebbe thought he meant, well, you're a big eater, look at you, right? So Chazi Rebbe Davar Mirtis, he saw that he was shaking, he was scared, he was embarrassed. Amalei Reb Chaim Barapach, Amalei Reb Chaim said, Bapachsi, I'm the son of Gedalim, your father's a gadol, you're the son of Tzadikim. He doesn't mean to embarrass you, he's telling you, go wash your hands to bench. You're the guy that should bench. He wants you to bench. And the proof from here is that the guy that washes his hands first, he's the guy that should bench. That's what the Gemara is trying to prove from here. When do you make a bracha on the reach? This is a very fascinating Gemara. When you make a bracha on smell, on this pipe, when the ashan goes up, when the smoke starts rising, make a bracha. You light up your pipe, you start smelling what's called. I'm not sure if people make a bracha on cigarettes. I mean, on a pipe. L'cher, you should. Maybe not. If it's a mitzvah baba vera, you're not supposed to smoke. So maybe you're not allowed to make a bracha. It's like making a bracha on chazi. You don't make a bracha. I'm not sure. Ask your LOA. So, he asked him, how can you make a bracha as soon as the smoke starts coming up? You didn't smell yet. Amalei, so it's a big kasha. What does that mean? Well, obviously, he didn't smell it. You always make a bracha before you enjoy, right? Amalei v'letamech, according to you, how do you make a bracha? You haven't eaten yet. It's the same thing. You always make a bracha before you enjoy. Before you eat, you make a mitzi, and before you smell, you say Bayanim B'samim. I mean, maybe the idea is that he doesn't know if it's going to have a good smell. I don't know. It's hard to imagine that. This is what the Mepharshim say. It doesn't mean that he didn't know that you make a bracha before you know now. That's not what's going on over here. It's not that he didn't know this principle. So what happened? Why'd you make a brichas hamaitzi before you eat? Because you're gonna eat. Is to smell. So you make a bracha before you smell. It's a big shayla in Achronim what exactly is going on over here. It's pashat. Says the gemorah. We haven't got time to get into it. Amar Rabbi Chia, and I didn't really understand what anyone says anyway. Amar Rabbi Chia v'rei Rabba. Panachmeini Amar Rabbi Chisda Amar Rav. V'amila Amar Rabbi Chisda Maziri. Kol ha-mugmorais. All of these mugmorais, the pipes. Mevarchen alav bayrei atzei b'samim. It's wood in there. You say bayrei atzei b'samim. Chutz mushk shemen chaya. Except for mushk shemen chaya, the oil of it's a machlekes if this literally means an animal. There's some oil from an animal that smells great, and they put it in the pipes. If you put that in your pipe, you say bari mine b'samim. Meisrei the gemorah us. You only say atzei on a farsamin, this type of fruit, shall base Rebbe. Valafarsa shall base case. Rebbe was the rich Nasi, or the Caesars. Parsimony had trees. It's a very expensive tree, very hard to find. If only on that tree, or on hadas, which we shake in abminim, hadasim. Only on that you say bariatze psamim, not on anything else. Why only on those would you say bariatze psamim and not on anything else? Because only on the hadas and the farsamin does a tree smell without burning it. Once you burn it, it's too late. Tiyufta kasha. So maybe that was his kasha. Maybe that was his kasha over here. What bracha do you make on bariatze psamim on the pipe before you burn it? Some say this is now. Before you burn it, you're going to say bariatze psamim before you burn it, right? It's got no smell. Once you burn it, it's too late. You've burnt it. You can't make a bariatze psamim on a burnt wood, right? In other words, the kasha is when do you make a bracha? Before you burn it, it's fresh wood, but there's no smell yet. After you burnt it, there's a smell, but you can't make a bracha on burnt wood. You don't make atzei psamim. So, like, that's how someone will understand the kashas over here. Okay. Amalei Rav Chisda Rav Yitzchak. Hai mashcha the farsaman mai mevarchen alei. The oil of mashcha is like the paste, whatever it is, of the farsaman tree. What bracha do you make? In other words, you take this farsaman, you're not using the wood. You use it turns into some type of paste, oil. Amalei hachigam Rav Yehuda bayrei shemen artzeinu. Rav Yehuda says, you say, bayrei shemen artzeinu, who created the oil of our land. Eretz Yisrael is our land. Amalei bar minei Rav Yehuda. Besides Rav Yehuda, the chaviva le'Eretz Yisrael, he loves Eretz Yisrael. Right? That's why he says, bayrei shemen artzeinu. Every bracha he threw in your Eretz Yisrael. Except for Rabbi Yehuda, what bracha do you make? Look at what does everyone else say? So he said, Rabbi Yochanan bayrei shemen arev, created sweet oils. Amar Ravada barava hai kashusa. Kasha is koisht. What bracha do you make on it? Koisht is apparently something called a kostos tree. I koisht. What bracha do you make on it? But if it turns into a shemen, you take the oil of the kashta, you don't make a atzei b'samim. Even the oil of it, if it's ground, loy. Now Dai says even if it's ground, you do make a bari atzei b'samim. Rashi says mashkatchina is shetachnu boy kashrasa. It's ground. You ground the tree. You still say a boyrei atzei psamim. Okay, have a wonderful day. Shkach habaysai.